In this episode, you'll uncover how unconscious patterns are secretly sabotaging your relationships and how to heal past trauma to create healthier connections.
Welcome to Women Winning Divorce, the podcast helping successful women navigate divorce with dignity so you can protect yourself, your children, and your assets. I'm Heather Quick, founding attorney at Florida Women's Law Group, where women win at life.
This week, we had Riana Malia on the show, and we had a great conversation about quantum time release, how it helps clear stored emotions and beliefs to create a new reality, and how to heal past trauma to build healthier connections. I hope this episode is valuable to anyone who might be listening. Stay tuned for the full episode. Welcome to this week's episode of Women Winning Divorce. I'm Heather Quick, owner and attorney at Florida Women's Law Group. Today, Riana Malia is joining us. Riana is an accomplished transformational coach trained in Evolved Neurolinguistic Programming, big word, quantum time release, and advanced trauma-aware coaching, who empowers ambitious women to live a confident and trauma-free life. Today, Riana and I will be discussing how unconscious patterns shape our relationships, healing past traumas to build healthier connections, and transforming your mindset from trauma to love. Welcome, Riana.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Well, I'm really excited. Just talking about all your training and what you do is fascinating to me. I can't wait to dive in. So for our listeners, would you share a little bit about yourself and how you got into all of this great stuff and helping women?
Absolutely. So I live in Northern California. I've lived in California about 12 years. Spent most of my years growing up and living in Minnesota, and came here about 12 years ago to take over a family business, which I thought was going to be kind of a moment of like breathing. I'd had a really tumultuous divorce that was, a long time coming. Thought it was going to be kind of clean and easy. Did not turn out that way, and spent a lot of time in therapy doing all the things we're told to do, right? We talk about it in therapy. We talk about it with our girlfriends. We read all the books. We give it time. We do all the things. And while all of that is beneficial and has value and helps kind of, gives us that temporary resolution and temporary peace, didn't really heal me or really move the needle. And I was really stuck in that place of sometimes the longer you keep telling the story, you're tethered to all that past pain, and it just, that's what stays front and center. My father had kind of been in and out of my life, not very present. He said, this is a great time. Come to California, take over this family business. So I moved my mom, my daughter, 2 horses, and 3 cats across the country. Against my better judgment. At the moment, there was a lot of red flags. I did not listen to that because I wanted so desperately for it to be what I wanted it to be. Got to California, very quickly realized not only was this business not viable, but it was illegal. And found myself surrounded by federal agents in handcuffs, guns drawn. And in that moment, had to make a decision because I had promised Maddie, she was 9 years old, and I took her out of the only life she had ever known, right? And I promised her I was only going to do that once. I moved around a lot as a child. I didn't want that. And so in that moment, I had to make a decision, either go back to Minnesota, which I totally could have done in a heartbeat, or keep my promise to my child and break some of those. So I tapped into that part of me that's really resourceful. And I think that piece is important because so often when we find ourselves in situations, Heather, like, I'm sure you can relate to this, where it's like a bad Lifetime movie and you're like, how the F am I going to not only live through this, but what's on the other side? Like, this is insane. And so often, as women, I think that we feel like we don't have the resources that we need, right? Time, money, energy, support, but really it's a lack of resourcefulness. So it's listening, knowing in your gut that this is not the end, right? There's something more meant for you in your life. So in that space, having been in personal development for a long time and been coaching, I was introduced being back in therapy, mind you, dealing with this massive betrayal, my father, forgiving him, but cutting him out of our life. And again, that sense of like, there's some outward movement, but I'm still very much attached to the anger and the sadness and the rage and all of those things. So then there's all this evidence, right? My husband, my father, like all the stuff that happens,
right,
from a subconscious standpoint. And I was introduced to some work that became then the foundation for what became my life's work. And in a matter of weeks, there was parts of me I didn't recognize in the very best way versus years of therapy, right? So
Wow.
that began my journey of really diving into that work and really exploring it and spending some years, really diving deep into that community and doing all of my training and uncovering what's possible when we tap into the unconscious mind and really get to clear things at a different level. So that's how the Clear to Create method was born, which is really about getting clarity first, and then clearing away everything that's keeping you stuck, that's not serving you, so you can actually create the life and the love that's meant for you.
Wow. Well, that's a lot. So, and it's amazing because I love that story. And just like you said, you dug deep for that resourcefulness and did what you had to do. So let's talk about our unconscious because, the unconscious, how does that play into who you are, who you end up with, and the decisions that you make?
Good. So I want you to think about your body for a moment. And I want you to imagine that everything from the neck up is your conscious mind. Okay. So it's our critical faculties. It's everything we know. It's what makes us effective. It's our goal setter. We use it all day long, and it's about 10% of our mind. So the rest of our body, everything from the neck down, is our unconscious mind, the other 90%. So if the conscious is our goal setter, the unconscious is our goal getter. It's the operating system. It's also the literal library of everything you've ever experienced in your entire life. So I'm 49. So 49 years of everything that's ever been said to me, done to me, everything I've ever experienced, experience of anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, anything I've ever said to another human, it's stored at a cellular level, right? So memory is cellular. And of course, it's in the circuitry of our brain, but we know memory is cellular. We know this to be true if you look at generational patterns, right? Of stuff you hear people talk about, in my family, like this is how it always is, everyone just puts aside feelings and everyone's divorced. We see it in animals. We see it in, somebody that hated pickles their whole life and they get an organ transplant and all of a sudden they crave pickles all the time and come to realize that person, that was their favorite food. So all kinds of memory really is cellular in our DNA. And when we are focused on when we're going through life, right? So 90% of who we are right now is stuff that we picked up between the ages of 0 and 7. So there's a lot of the stuff that's running the show is decisions that were made by a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old or a 7-year-old, which is really interesting, right? Because we probably wouldn't task a 4-year-old with making critical life decisions for us today. But all of that is running in the unconscious. And when we keep trying to go at things the same way, right? Because, smart, ambitious women, it's like, all right, well, why? I know I've been in therapy for years. I've done all this work. Like, why can't I just figure this out? Why am I stuck? Like, what is it? And if you could have, you would have, right? It's not for the lack of ability, but we have to, rather than keep trying to talk about it more or, read one more book. Again, helpful, but we have to look at it in a different way, right? Because you cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it. You have to tap in to the other piece so that we can actually not only uncover all of those things, but the thoughts and behaviors and patterns that are attached to them, which is really what's keeping us.
And and I love this stuff. I've done a lot of work myself, and I find it just fascinating because it's really never ending. It's such a good process, but it gives you an understanding. Because let's just talk about, somebody who's in a relationship going through a divorce and they question a lot, hopefully, right? Like, why did I do this? Or, my mom, I think maybe her third or fourth marriage, but the first 3 were all the same, but she didn't realize it till further in. And I wouldn't have either. I was a child, and then growing up, but now you see it. And she described it as, I kept marrying somebody like my father. And then I finally changed my pattern and married somebody more like my mother, who's more nurturing and cares for me. And, that's how she used it. But I was so happy for her, right? She's been married the longest to him. And I noticed that in the work I do, right? Divorce. And people keep doing the same thing again and again. And why do they do that? Why do we do that? Because we're not aware. If we were dealing with a rational decision, we'd be like, well, of course not. Of course not. I'm going to go repeat that ended badly. I'm not going to do that or enact the same way, right? I mean, there's a part of us that certainly wouldn't want to do that.
Oh my gosh. Probably the top question I get from my clients is, why do I keep dating the same person? Why do I keep marrying the same person? Why do I keep marrying my ex-husband, my father, blah, blah, blah? Let me tell you why.
Okay.
So every day we think between 65 and 85,000 thoughts.
Okay. That's a lot.
90% of those thoughts are recycled. They're the same thoughts we thought yesterday and the day before and the week before and the month before. The problem with that, Heather, is 75% of those recycled thoughts are negative. And I get a lot of feedback on that because I have a lot of clients who are like, I don't know, like, I think I've got my mindset good. I'm like, I'm declaring I'm not going to do this again. But when we actually analyze it, most of the time, because of the way that our brains are wired, we're really, really focused on all the things we don't want. I don't want to be in another relationship where I'm not cherished. I don't want to be in another relationship where he's a narcissist and I'm gaslit and I don't want to be financially dependent. I don't want to be in this situation. I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be in a relationship where I don't feel like so loved and that I can't trust. So the problem is the universe and the unconscious mind doesn't hear the clarifying don't. So for many people, they're like, I'm being positive. I'm declaring what I don't want, but it's all you will continue to get over and over because that's where your focus is. And it's why people end up in the same relationships. I don't want a man who cheats. I don't want a man who's not, solid and kind and loving. I don't want to be with somebody who is, frivolous, whatever it is. Guess what? That's all you will continue to receive until we can flip that focus, to actually rewiring the neurology around that, to focusing on what you do want. And there's a very, very, very simple but profoundly life-changing process that I have my clients do in the course of 72 hours so we can kind of rewire the brain.
Well, we got to talk about that because everybody wants that, right? We all want that. So is that the evolved neurolinguistic programming, or is that more of your other one of your other processes?
So Evolved NLP is part of, I'm a practitioner of that, and it's like a mastery in communication, in a way in which it's just the way that you are able to communicate and how you show up in the world, and the way that I teach people to communicate is just super powerful. So there's a lot that goes into that. The method that we talked about, right? Clear to create. So I want to back up to one thing before we move on, and something you said about your mom. And this is true for all of us. And one of the things that I've always said in my whole life is, I want, whether we've been besties for 50 years or we meet in the grocery store line, I want you to live your version of your very best life, right? And it's different for all of us. But you can't go from being kind of held by past pain and trauma and old stuff to just living your very best life. That's not how it works. You have to clear certain things before you can create, right? And so you have to clear the patterns to create the partnerships. We want healthy, loving, partnerships in marriage and in romantic partnerships, in our parenting, in our professions. But if we keep bringing the same stuff, you're never going to have that, right? We have to clear the story to create the life. People talk about they want a different story. You got to stop telling the old one. You're so attached to that story. It becomes that drama and that, and there's a payoff there. But you have to have that story to create the life that you want. And you have to clear the cycles to create the confidence, right? And I'm sure you hear this all the time. Women are like, I don't know. How do I trust myself? I thought I knew, and look how that turned out. So, and you have to clear the loss to create the love. And so there's these pieces that need to happen, but it doesn't have to be this long, heavy, drawn out process. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Which brings us back to your most recent question. So how do we do that? It's a framework called the fear to focus framework. So it's flipping that focus, but I'm going to give you just a really quick version of it so that your listeners can actually do this right now.
Okay, cool.
So we'll do the quick version, right? If we were doing this together, this would be much, much longer. But what I want you to do, unless you're driving, of course, is I want you to take two pieces of paper, clean pieces of paper. On the top of one, I want you to write away. And then on the other one, I want you to write toward. And I want you to imagine you're in a room. So I think we're both in rooms right now with walls. So one wall is going to be your away wall. And that on that wall is everything you don't want in life. Everything you don't want again, more of, ever, all of it.
Okay.
And so for you, Heather, if you close your eyes, where is that wall? To your left, to your right, in front of you, or behind you?
Probably to my right.
You're right.
To my
That's
right.
your
To
away.
my away.
Got it. Beautiful. And now I want you to imagine your toward wall. And on your toward wall is like magic wand, fairy dust, everything you want for yourself, your life, your profession, your family, your future, your health, your wealth, all of it. Like every single thing you want. So where would your toward wall be?
The wall in front of me.
In front of you. Okay, fantastic. And again, it's different for everybody.
Okay.
So what I want you to do is I want you to make a list. For right now, you can just do 5 things. 5 things you don't want, 5 things you do. And then what I would have you do if we were doing this for real is I'd have you really pour into those lists, take photos of them, pin them in your notes app so you have access to them. Some clients, I will actually put those on walls, like in a bathroom or a closet, because they're really, really visual. And I want you to wear a rubber band for the next 72 hours. And it can't be a squishy scrunchie. It needs to be like, you know, it's got a
snapper. A snapper, right?
It's got a stick. So here's the science behind the snap. So for the next 72 hours, if you want to play, wearing that rubber band, every single time you find yourself maybe in the moment, and it might take a while till you can get aware enough to catch yourself in the moment. But if you find yourself kind of spiraling, feeling anxious, running through a bunch of stuff, you know, or you might not know it in the moment and you might just feel kind of yucky in your body. You might have that tension or that pit in your stomach, or you just feel kind of anxious. I want you to snap that rubber band hard because we need a pattern interrupt. And I want you to replace it with a better feeling thought. But first, I want you to notice what it was you were thinking about in the first place. And I promise you 99.9% of the time, it's going to be something on that away wall. You're thinking about something you want. And what's going to happen over the course of 72 hours? And I would introduce you to the emotional guidance scale and teach you how to choose a better feeling thought. And we would go into frequency and all of that. But for purpose of just simplicity, and so everyone can do this, when I say replace it with a better feeling thought, either look at that toward wall list and choose something on it and really focus on it as though it is, right? That it is because our brain doesn't know the difference between something that actually happens and something that we visualize with it.
Happen or visualize.
If you add the emotion piece to it, the brain doesn't know the difference. So that's one option. Second option is to just lean into something for 30 seconds or 60 seconds that you are genuinely grateful. And it could just be the sunshine on my face, or my puppy, or I had a great coffee with a girlfriend this morning, whatever. It just doesn't have to be but genuinely grateful. And then you're still kind of in that place. I want you to ask yourself, who in this moment can I serve? And it doesn't have to be a big gesture. It could literally be a thought or a prayer or just sending good vibes to somebody. It could be a text to a girlfriend saying, hey, have a great day, love you. It could be picking up the trash can that's knocked over at your neighbor's driveway. Doing something for someone else gets you out of your head, and it is one of the fastest ways to raise that frequency and that vibration. And what you'll notice is and because we're human, we're not going to stop doing these things. We're not going to stop having these thoughts. But what is going to happen is you're going to recognize it fast. You're going to pull yourself out of it fast. So rather than being in that space for hours, it might go to minutes or seconds. And the more that you practice and you start rebuilding those neural pathways and new neurology around this, what you will find is you will start to notice your physical reality changing, the things that you see, the people that show up, because what's going to start happening is you're going to start seeing and attracting the people, the resources, the opportunities that you want in your life. Instead of continuing to attract all the crap that you don't want because you're so focused on your away wall list. Does that make sense?
It does. I love it. I love it. Thank you for that little tutorial, because I think we can all do that. And the listeners, so you can just listen again, go back to save this episode when you're not driving.
Yes.
As you know, a lot of us listen to podcasts while we're driving or walking. I think that's wonderful. Now, is that part of, because you've got the quantum pattern protocol and then there's the quantum time release. Is that part of that, or is that totally something different?
So the quantum pattern protocol is the framework of kind of how we do this work. And inside of that are all these other different frameworks, including the one I just shared with you, including the aligned attraction blueprint, which is where we do a values elicitation. And we get really clear on, like, without these things, it cannot be. We do your non-negotiables list and a desires list. And what that becomes is kind of that soul connection codex. And I tell people to run everybody in their life through this asset, this tool, if you will, that we create together, because it's going to give you the ability to never have to worry about trusting yourself again. Because I'm going to teach you how to make values-driven decisions so that you can have a clean yes and a clean no. and get out of the noise and drama and the decision fatigue of the maybe, which is the devil, of the not knowing. And then we become, we can't make decisions because we don't know, because we don't trust ourselves, and then we do nothing. And then that's like your menu, because if there's anything on that non-negotiable list that's present or not present, depending on the context of the thing, it's an easy, clean no. That is not your person. In a romantic relationship, in friendships, in business, doesn't matter. And so it becomes like this menu, right? And you wouldn't go to a restaurant and say, I'd like a protein, a side, and a salad, and just expect that they can read your mind. Because so your server's going to come back and bring us a pork chop and some Brussels and a Caesar, and we got what we ordered. But what we wanted was a ribeye and roasted asparagus and an arugula salad with beets and goat cheese and a glass of wine. So we got what we ordered. We didn't get what we wanted. And why most people, you have to be crystal clear on what you want, and then the universe can deliver. It's the same with our thoughts. It's the same. So all of these are part of it. Now, to answer your question about quantum time release is part of the work that I do. It in and of itself is incredible. It's probably one of the most magical things you'll experience. It's about a 3-hour session. It's completely unconscious, which means you're not unconscious. You're chill and somewhere comfortable, but we're tapping into the unconscious mind. So I want you to think about throughout your life, anytime after root cause, which you don't have conscious memory of. So that's important to know, because we're not going to go back and look for something that happened to you when you were 5 and re-traumatize you and like deal with it like that. No, we're not looking for any content. But throughout our life, if you imagine a ribbon, or I think of like a piece of twine, because I grew up in a horse barn in a tiny town in southern Minnesota. So like bales of hay. So think about your ribbon. And for each of those negative emotions, anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, and then all the limiting beliefs and limiting decisions, which often are like an un or a less, right? Unlovable, unworthy, powerless, hopeless, whatever. All the things that, we have in that unconscious mind. Every time we have a significant emotional experience, anger, for instance, a marble goes on that ribbon, and sadness has its own, and shame and guilt and fear, they all have their own ribbons. So today, something happens that makes you angry. It's not the today thing. It's the, 40, 50, whatever years of marble behind it, that gestalt. That's that charge that you're holding on to currently at a cellular level. And in quantum time release, we get to release that in a painless, peaceful, joyous way. So we get to transmute and release all that heaviness. Because when it's not released, what do we see? We see cycles and patterns that never get broken. We see anxiety and overwhelm and depression. We see illness, injury, and disease. It all manifests in the body because it's that negative emotion changes our DNA. So when we release that, transmute it, actually get the soul learnings of who you really are to re-anchor that in, and then future pace and recreate new relationship with those emotions going forward. It gives you the ability to let go of the charge. And then in between each release, it's amazing because then we do a check. And so I'll have you go back to a specific event that you remember in the past where that particular emotion used to be a problem. And I want you to check and see if it still has a charge. So you may realize, and every single time, it's like you watch the people's eyes light up and smiles just they're like, whoa. If you would have asked me that 3 hours ago, I would have immediately been activated. My heart would have been racing. I would have felt nauseous, or I would have, like all the things that we experience when we think about something that's painful. Right. It has a physiological response, just like a lie detector test. So we get to release all of that. And now, that's the ultimate clearing. And now we're ready to be open to replace the behaviors and the neurology and the strategy and create that life, that love, that business, all of those things. And this is where you really get to fall in love with yourself again and trust yourself and confidently hold boundaries and expertly communicate your needs and really deepen the richness in every single one of your relationships. And then we get to do something amazing, which is another part of the protocol. And it's a framework called the Aligned Achievement Framework, where it's a quantum goal setting process where we take your goals and we reverse engineer them in a very specific way. So we have a blueprint that goes backwards. So we start with the actual achievement, whether it's a relationship or a money goal, whatever it is. And then we determine what has to happen. How do you know you're there? What has to happen in the second before? Just for ease, let's say there's a goal. I'm going to have $100,000, by the end of June, whatever the thing is. Okay. How do you know you're there? Well, I opened the bank app and I saw the balance. It was $1,002.47. Okay, great. So what has to happen just before that? So we micro step backwards all the way back to today. Because when we goal, if you're going to set a goal traditionally, and we're just using that conscious part of our mind, and we're like, all right, so I want to set a goal for the end of June and blah, 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 blah. Well, going forward, we're going to miss 50 or 60% of the most important steps because we can't fill in the blanks, right? Just like in any kind of work like this, when we don't replace the old behavior, it's why people revert back to their old stuff while they're triggered, because we didn't replace the neurology and the strategy with anything else. So of course, you can only go back to what you know. So after we reverse engineer everything, then we go and install that on your future timeline, which allows you to experience in all the senses, so that then we ignite the reticular activating system in the brain so that it's laser focused, looking for the people and the resources and the opportunities that you need to be aware of, so that we can actually make sure that you get to live the life that's meant for you, instead of spending between now and dead just wishing for it.
Yeah, like that's just really amazing work.
Thank you.
And what drew you to this? Like, because, or did you create this quantum pattern protocol and quantum time release? This is you?
The quantum pattern, all my frameworks are my IP. So that is the work that I've created. Quantum time release is a multi-dimensional technique that's been used for hundreds of years around the world. Now, there are a ton of us that are trained to be able to guide people through quantum time release, but it is a very, very old multi-dimensional technique used to clear and release the built up negative energy that's held in our bodies, so that we can actually heal. We can actually move forward. We can actually let go of all of that stuff that keeps us stuck and tethered to all the things we don't want.
Which, when we're stuck and tethered to that, it's part of why we keep doing the same thing over and over, even though it would be on our away wall or what we don't want. It's because
So you've got to take that invisible and make it visible first, right? That's that like clarity piece. And then once we know it, we can do that dysfunction detox and get rid of all that yucky. And then we get to create what it is that we actually want. Because so many people, and I'm sure you hear this all the time, people live on this kind of precipice, on this edge of like, they almost get what they want. They almost have the right relationship. They almost, and then they self-sabotage, they blow it up. But that's all strategy. And we have a strategy for everything. We have a strategy for health and illness and sex and shopping and eating and parenting. I mean, it's how the brain knows what to do next to do a thing. Some of it serves us well. Most of it's super dysfunctional. So we do like formal strategy elicitation. And we look at like, was it something you saw, something you heard, something you felt? Like, what's the thing right before the thing that keeps you stuck, that you just blow everything up? And then we get to actually blow that out and replace that strategy. So people that have procrastinated their whole life, or people that, all these things, they're like, I don't know. I always do this. And then we do a strategy elicitation, and using logical levels, we blow it out, and then they practice and they're like, this is insane. And the same with phobia releases. Like, we can do all of this stuff so fast by tapping into the right part of the brain and being able to rewire it in a way that doesn't continue to re-traumatize us and, keep us talking about the same thing for 20 years.
So we've talked about all these different things. How do you know which one is right for you? Obviously, you've got to talk to someone like you, and then it's like, well, based on maybe what you want to achieve, what you're trying to change about yourself, maybe. Is that how you help someone figure that out?
Here's the amazing thing about this work, Heather. Whether you're coming to me because you're, at the time of your life, post-divorce, you want to heal, you don't want to keep dating the same person, you want to be able to find that love that's, that extraordinary love that's worthy of you. Or you come to me because you're just in a transition time and you're like, I don't even know who I am. I was a wife and a mom for so long, and now, like, I don't know, who am I and what do I really want, because I've taken care of everyone else. Or I know there's something more meant for me. I just don't know what it is or how to get it. This work, the whole the quantum pattern protocol and the method, it's the same. I use that framework for everyone. So we get to experience all of that. And it really does affect every area of your life. So if you're coming to me because you want to find extraordinary love, it's still going to massively improve the communication with your children. If you're coming to me because you want to figure out how to launch a business, you're still going to heal the stuff from when you were a child without having to talk about it anymore. And, probably end up the best version of you in your romantic relationships. So it's going to cover all of you. It's just how, the focus and the way in which we work, because all of my work is private. So I don't do like group class,
Right.
like it's very private because I design it for each person, but the framework stays the same. So all those pieces we talked about, everybody gets to experience all of those when we work together, including the quantum.
Including the what? I missed that.
Including quantum time release.
Got it. No, yeah, I think this is amazing. I love this stuff because I am a true believer in this. Now, what about, okay, 'cause I got to ask you this.
Yeah.
So I do really, I believe we're so interconnected in the universe, and you really have to, that you can clear these old things. You carry them around. I've seen the effects of that. What if you're not really sure if you believe it or not, but you're like, but, Riana, I need to do something, right? I want to achieve this. I don't know if I buy all this, right? But I'll do it anyway. Like, is that okay? Or do you have to have like a full buy-in on whether or not it's going to work? What do you think about that?
I can't tell you how many. So I have a client, she's like, imagine like the most traditional, stereotypical Italian Jewish woman in the Bronx, right? Her personality, she's got this big personality. She came to me in the midst of all these things, personally, professionally, in a divorce, had been in a relationship, ignores all the red flags. She was like crazy, hated her ex-husband. Oldest was about to graduate high school, couldn't imagine being in a room with him and she was very much like that. She's like, I don't know, this is a little wooey for me. Like, she's like, I get there's some science here and I like that you process, but like, I don't know about this. I'm like, okay, well, you have a choice. You continue to do what you're doing or you try something, and I'm like, just have an open mind. It's not going to hurt you. Okay, fine. 4 weeks in, she sends me a text and she said, I just had a happy hour. Every Friday, they just happy hour with this group of girlfriends. And she said, they kind of sat me down quite seriously and said, we need to talk to you. And she was concerned. And they said, are you doing drugs? And she's like, what? And they're like, what are you doing? You're doing something. And she's like, why do you say that? And they're like, number one, every happy hour, you would come and bitch and complain about your ex-husband and all, blah, blah, blah. And it was just, you were always just so angry. And now you're so much nicer. And you're talking about these exciting things you're looking forward to and kind of talking about things that, you're thinking about. And she started laughing and she's like, huh. So for her, that external, how she was occurring in the world, she hadn't even necessarily recognized it in herself yet. But it was so profound that her girlfriends were thinking they were going to need to do an intervention. So for her, having that, like, I don't know, this is a little woo-woo for me. It didn't matter. What it comes down to is, can you show up with an open mind? And are you willing to play the biggest game of your life for your life? Is this your line in the sand moment, right? Because it's like between now and dead, what do you want? You want more of the same? Or do you want what you want? We're waiting to want what we want.
Yeah, I love it. This is so cool. I'm going to have to try this. I'm going to have to work with you, Riana. And like everybody I know, I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, you got to work with Riana, because I think we all want that. And we're just not sure how to get there, right? Or we don't realize even why we're stuck in not getting to that place, right? We don't understand why we're not doing it.
Absolutely. And again, like, please understand and hear me when I say there's nothing that you're doing wrong. This isn't that you're doing something wrong or not doing something. You can't do that. You can't do this on your own. We have to tap into that other part of you. And it's so incredible because, like I said, I don't know how many times I hear, I'm so sick of telling the story over and over again. I don't want to go to a new therapist. I'm like, yeah, it's exhausting. But also, like, you also get to have a boundary with the people in your life, because at a certain point, because they think they're being helpful and they're like, oh, how are you doing? Right? You're going through divorce. Right. You get to say, you know what? I love you. I know this is coming from a place of care, and I don't need to talk about it anymore. Like, I'm ready to talk about what's next, not the stuff that, happened.
Yeah. Keep rehashing it. It's just not good for you to speak it and hear it, right? Because it's like then you are reliving it and you're not moving forward. You just like kind of step back and your body thinks you're going through it again.
Exactly. That's 100% what happens. And just like, you can visualize something amazing and the brain doesn't know the difference. When we think back to a memory about something that was really painful or traumatic or made us angry, whatever, the cellular memory in the body reactivates as though it's happening and physiologically changes your heart rate, your respiration rate, it relives it again and makes it fresh. So it's like you're deepening the pain every single time. So it's why And again, I love therapy. I think it's amazing. I'm not anti-therapy in any way, but when you're just talking about that stuff over and over and over again, you're never going to move forward. You're never going to actually get what you want. So I did just release something that I think will be really great for all of your listeners, but I've been working on it for months, and it's an assessment called What's Standing Between You and Extraordinary Love, using all these 9 areas that in my frameworks. So we look at like your trauma score and your impact score and your attachment score and all these different things. So it's not like the Disney princess quiz where it's 5 questions. So it's like 40 questions. You want to like give yourself a good, at least 10 minutes where you can really just have that time for you. And then you're going to get a 28-page report that breaks down all of the areas for you and where your scores are and what you could be feeling. What's the risk of staying in that space? What are things that you could do to kind of help move you out of that? It's such incredible information for you to have just personally for all of us to really know. Like, it's brilliant. So I would love to share that with you as well.
Oh my gosh. Well, we would love that. I can't believe we're out of time. I have enjoyed this immensely, and I'm really happy to have you on the show and share all of these processes and options, right, for our listeners. But before we go, can you impart on our listeners what you've learned about women and their resilience throughout your career and experience?
Oh my goodness. We are resilient. What I've learned and what I see so often is that trust piece. After the divorce or after the failed business or after both or after that empty nest starts and we don't know who we are anymore at this stage in life. And to be able to really learn to trust yourself again and fall in love with yourself is fully possible. And that's probably one of my favorite things to watch unfold, because 95% of the women that come to me, underneath at the core, they don't trust themselves because they thought they had their person, or they thought they knew this person. They thought this was their forever. When that falls apart, we go, well, what's wrong with me? What should I have done? And I thought that was like my forever person. Now, how would I know if the next person is right or wrong? So it's that piece, and really understanding, I promise you. So one of my core values is I'm a magnet for miracles. And I love teaching women how to be the same. And it all starts with the things that we talked about, and really flipping that focus and understanding that you are this beautiful, vibrant, independent, incredible woman. And we just got to reintroduce you to her.
I love that. I love it so much. And lastly, Riana, where can our listeners find you for more information and resources?
Yes. So Instagram, Facebook, on the socials, it's at Riana Malia. And then the website is rianamalia.com. And and there's also a gifts page on my website that I'd love for your listeners to go to. I pulled together some great things that I'd love to be able to give you for free. The assessment is just at quiz.rianamalia.com. So you go and you take that and get those scores and let me know, what came up for you. And then also, I would love to offer your listeners an actual opportunity to talk with me one-to-one for half an hour privately, just to get some clarity around where they are, and just if I can help shift in that call. I promise I'll leave you better than I found you.
I love it. Yes, we will make sure that we have those links available to our listeners. And we've reached the end of our show. It went by so fast. So I'm sure we'll have to meet again and have you on the show again. But thank you so much, Riana, for joining us today to discuss how unconscious patterns shape our relationships, healing past traumas to build healthier connections, and transforming your mindset from trauma to love. Thank you. That was amazing.
Listeners, if you or someone you know in the Northeast Florida area is going through or even thinking about divorce, you're not alone. Taking that first step can feel overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. Our newsletter is filled with actionable advice tailored to guide you through this process. By signing up, you'll gain the tools to face the unknown with courage and see if we're the right fit to support you during this life-changing time. Don't wait. Click the link in the show notes, fill out the form, and take the first step toward building a brighter future today.